So, Rory, you were speaking with Cassie, Dante's wife, about the theatre, and you need to move this conversation along now to something you want to talk about. So, how would you do that?
Okay, well, I would say there's a lot of good theatre at the moment, a lot of good operas, and then I would segue onto the operatic episode, the original final episode of Futurama, which is centred around an opera.
Excellent. I like it. Very smooth. So let's start the show.
Well, he's got a new guest, time to put him to the test. So hey, what's the topic? We don't know, cause he never does research for this show. His name is Jason, he wants to talk to you about a topic you love or something you do. No two topics are ever the same. That might sound impressive, but they're all pretty lame. A conversation with
Hello, you're listening to A Conversation With, the podcast where each week I'm joined by an interesting guest to have a conversation on a topic of their choice. And joining me this week from Doghair Presents and Hangover Reviews, it's Rory M Spence. Hi, Rory.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, actually. Yeah, I'm gonna break my usual tired. It's been a tough day. Feeling all right. Yeah.
Good.
I'm ready to hear all about your topic that, as we've heard, is Futurama.
Yeah.
So, why this topic?
Well, this is my absolute favourite TV show of all time. I have seen every episode. I could not tell you how many times. Just an uncountable amount of times at this point. I will often fall asleep watching it, so you can even put a number on it if I had been keeping count.
I was literally about to ask, is it the kind of thing you can put on and fall asleep to?
Yeah. As more than anything else, that is what I would do. If I can't sleep, I will always put Futurama on.
Because I often feel like probably everybody does this, but and it's probably one of those things where everybody does it, but the 5 people I've spoken to about it think it's weird. But if I can't sleep, I have to put something on that I know really well.
Yeah.
And then I can just watch it and I'm like, oh yeah, this is good. And then I'll fall asleep. But if it's a film or a show that I don't know that well,
yeah,
I'll keep watching it. I'll force myself to stay awake to watch it. But if it's something I know so well, then I'll be like, oh, this is one of my favourite shows. Just dead.
Yeah. No, I'm the absolute same with that. That was like Futurama and probably Friends are the 2 big ones for me.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Do you get any crazy dreams from watching either of these shows?
No, I don't dream much or don't remember my dreams much. So I wish I did. That'd be great.
So just in case anybody is listening and they've never heard of Futurama, break it down for us as simply as possible.
Okay, well, if you've never seen or heard of Futurama, you probably still have heard of The Simpsons, which is a TV show created by Matt Groening. Matt Groening later, along with David X. Cohen, who was a Simpsons writer, went on to create a sci-fi series about a man called Fry who was frozen in time and ended up 1,000 years in the future.
Yeah. That's as simple as it gets, I suppose.
Yeah.
And it's, I have seen it. I'd say I've probably not seen it as much as I've seen The Simpsons, but only because it seems so much easier to stumble upon episodes of The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to make the conscious effort to find an episode of Futurama, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's definitely more niche. Simpsons has a much more broad appeal than Futurama does, and that would be why it's just always on TV.
Yeah. Although, that being said, again, you'll get a lot of people that I kind of feel if you like Futurama, you like it all, and you've seen it all. And if you like The Simpsons, you might be like, oh, I like The Simpsons, and then you qualify that with like, but not the new stuff, or up till season such and such, and then you know, then it kind of went off the cliff a little bit. So it's rare to find anyone who is as passionate now about The Simpsons as they were like back then.
But the amount of seasons people like of The Simpsons is probably about as many as there are seasons of Futurama.
Yeah, it's been cancelled a couple of times.
Yes, 3 times, I think, from memory.
Yeah. So you mentioned before in your intro that the first finale was the one centered around the opera. Yeah. And since then, it's had a couple other finales.
And they're all always amazing episodes. That's what's great about it. It's just when they don't know, either they're about to be cancelled or they don't know if they're getting renewed or not, they have a final episode that sort of ties everything up really nicely, and they're all amazing episodes. So
what is it that draws you to Futurama? You're saying is this like your favourite show?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I don't know. It's got this like wonderful mix of being one of the most intelligently written, clever TV shows, but also just some real dumb humour in it as well. It's this really nice mix of humour in it that I really like.
Yeah, it is a weird kind of balance to hit, isn't it? Because and also because it's not just like surface level. You might think, well, because you've got sort of the intelligent character and the fool, and obviously that's why you get. But even characters that generally are quite kind of silly or foolish will have moments where they're really profound. And so it's sort of, it's not just within the show, but within each character almost you get these kind of this duality. Do you have go with the pedestrian questions of, do you have a favourite character?
I really like Bender, the robot character, a lot, because he's such a horrible person, and everyone just seems to accept that. It's really interesting for his character. But he also has moments, like you say, where he's totally different and he'll be really caring about people. Or one of my favourite episodes, one of the ones I was watching last night, is called Godfellas, and it's where Bender is floating through space and he sort of inadvertently becomes a god of a civilization of tiny people. And it's really, you get a lot of like interesting character moments from him in that episode, because he changes, well, not changes, but you see another side of him. That it's not this just like guy who loves to steal and is murdered on occasion and talks about murder openly.
Yeah, it's like that. I think, is it like in the very first episode where he's sort of having the dream about killing all the humans? It's like
it's early on. It's that's the third one, I think. It's the one where Fry moves in with him.
Yeah. So I mean, it's established early on that he's not the biggest fan of people. No. It's also kind of an interesting premise for a futuristic show, because even though it's set in the future, their job is very I don't say mundane. Is that the word to use? I mean, yeah. Is their parcel delivery is basically and the kind of joke there is Fry was a pizza delivery boy in the 90s when he was frozen, and he gets to the future and he's a delivery boy again. So that's kind of the sort of joke of that. Yeah. But so have you got some favourite episodes or some recommendations for people that?
Yeah. As I said, they're Godfellas. It's mostly a Bender-centric episode that's really, really good, really well written, some really interesting ideas that you don't see a lot in animated television, or television in general. Explores some really deep stuff for just a 20-minute cartoon. Yeah. And there's actually amazing music in that one as well. It's really, really good score.
I was thinking about so for one of the episodes that I kind of hear that sort of people mention when they're talking of like, oh, it was so kind of deep or emotional, is the one where he finds where Fry finds the fossil of his dog.
Yeah, that is the episode that I have seen the least. Yeah. I know that for a fact, because
you don't like it.
Rewatching, I'll love it,
but
it's so difficult to watch. Just the last like 5 minutes. No, the last scene essentially is really like I will cry I cry at a lot of stuff. I cry at films all the time, but that's something I've cried thinking about that sometimes. It's so brutal. There's a few episodes of Futurama like that. Like the very last one has some moments that are really really emotional, and there's one called Game of Tones where Fry gets to like go into his memory and he talks to his mum, and that's a really like emotional scene in that because he hasn't seen her for like years and she doesn't know what happened to him and stuff like that. So it's really good.
Yeah, it's an interesting sort of. It is interesting how they play with the fact that he is so far in the future, and when they do kind of comment on his past, but then even the fact that it's in the future, the way they're able to integrate like cameos of people and things is very clever with the heads in jars and stuff. It's all very. I mean, it does show that kind of level of creativity behind this show. And if anyone is thinking, I wish I knew more in-depth information about this show, well, coincidentally, you can go to an episode of Doghair Presents that was all about Futurama, and you'll find out the whole history. That was back in the days when you had a co-host, Rory.
It was one of the last ones, man. I think it was the last one that I presented to him, actually, because it had been on my list for ages, and he knew I was a big Futurama fan. It was coming at one point, so I thought, if he's leaving, I need to get this done first.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Oh, maybe he didn't deserve it at that point. As punishment, you're not even allowed to download this or ever listen to it. Yeah. So, I mean, there are quite a number of characters. I think it was, in your episode you mentioned even that some were written quite differently until kind of different voice actors got involved, and then they just sort of made some adjustments at the time. But overall, it's kind of it's like put together really well. Very diverse kind of bunch of characters that are jammed together. Everybody's got weird little quirks that just sort of just work. It's a bit weird.
Yeah, well, much like The Simpsons as well. Yeah, that's kind of a similar like group of characters. Not a similar group of characters, but similarly diverse in there. But somehow like deep, complex characters, but still the first time you see them, you kind of know who they are. Like it's a great bit of writing where you just kind of know what a character's like the first time they open their mouth.
So apart from Bender, who are your kind of top couple of characters, and who are the ones that you could kind of almost do without?
There's some more like sort of obscure characters that like when they pop up, I always love it. Like there's a lawyer who's like a man-sized chicken. He's blue. He's called Hyper Chicken, and he has a sort of like southern accent, sort of Foghorn Leghorn-ish, but he's a lawyer, and he's a terrible lawyer. He's always their lawyer whenever they end up in court. He's really funny. And the Robot Mafia I like a lot. Donbot, Joey Mousepad is a great member of the Robot Mafia. I'm trying to think of characters I could do out. I don't know if there's many, to be honest. I can't think of many.
I mean, that surely says something for the writing and for the characters that they've got then, because it's rare that I mean it's not always, but there's quite a lot of shows where you're just like, I don't know why this person's included. Or I think there was quite a thing. It's almost like, there was this whole thing about like Lisa episodes that people were like, when it's a Lisa episode, it's just kind of never as enjoyable. I'm not saying that's my opinion. I'm just saying I know it's a thing.
Yeah, I actually have the complete opposite opinion. I really like Lisa episodes. And actually, David X. Cohen, who I said co-created Futurama, he wrote a lot of the Lisa episodes during the heyday of The Simpsons. So.
I wonder if there's a relation between that and why, because I mean Futurama, I think when it was sort of announced, because when did it actually first air?
It was 1999. Can't remember the month, but it was just before the turn of the millennium.
Yeah, because I remember I kind of remember the lead up to it and hearing about it, and everybody was very sort of excited because The Simpsons was still going kind of very strong, and it was like, and this is the next Simpsons almost. That was sort of how it was put across, and it seemed that people were a little bit. It wasn't, because obviously it wasn't The Simpsons. It's a very different show.
Well, this just happened again with Disenchantment. People were expecting either another Simpsons or another Futurama, and it was neither of those, and that seemed to annoy people. It's just...
It seems like a weird reaction, though, isn't it? Because, I mean, if it was just another Simpsons, just make an episode of The Simpsons. Like, why make a new show or a different show? I mean, and I feel like with almost anything else, people would be annoyed if it was the opposite. If like a band put out a new song and it's just like, oh, this is just like the other song you did. There's there's really no difference. People would be a bit kind of disappointed with that. They'd be like, oh, I was expecting something new. But with this show, they're like, oh, I was just expecting The Simpsons in space.
Yeah. It's a weird thing. Like, I suppose, just looking at Matt Groening's character designs, when at that point most people had only seen The Simpsons of his work, it would have been, you would probably be expecting it in some way to be like The Simpsons, but yeah, I mean, you watch an episode and you go, okay, it's not The Simpsons, I understand what it is now, and then you move on for that.
Yeah. But it just seemed like there was a huge backlash on this sort of thing, and then as a result, it got moved around a lot. I think, if I'm not like time, like people go, "What do you mean moved around?" I mean time slots, and when they were showing the episodes, got moved around a lot. Yeah,
it was a big problem. Especially they ended up being like after sports, which is always like a terrible place to be because sports aren't they don't have a definite end point. So So people don't know when to tune in to watch it. So that was a big problem for them.
Yeah, and I imagine there's not I don't want to say not a massive crossover, but I don't think it's huge sports fans that are then like, and then I want to watch this sci-fi cartoon.
Yeah, although some are. Like, I'm a pretty big sports fan, but yeah, I get your point.
I feel like you're a fan of nearly everything, Rory. You're just a fan of life.
That's definitely not true. No, that is not true.
I lost my train of thought there. I had a sip of wine. That was a mistake. Knocked any good thought out of my mind. So I know you've got some episodes that are your favourites. You don't have any characters you don't particularly like, but are there any episodes that for you just fall short?
Yeah, there's one actually in particular that I was actually thinking about while I was watching it. I think it is my least favourite episode. Well, no, it definitely is. It's called Newtopia.
Right.
And it's... What happens in it? It's one of the later ones. The crew become they're not making money delivering one parcel using a spaceship. One parcel at a time, so they become an airline. And they crash on a planet, and this sort of alien monster kind of like puts they're arguing between the two genders that are there, and this alien like pits them against each other, and then ends up like swapping their genders and stuff like that. And why I don't like it is because a lot of the characters act out of character and say things like, for the sake of pitting the genders against each other, they act like they normally wouldn't act, or like have opinions that don't feel genuine for the character.
Right, yeah. So it's like been exaggerated so that it will play out in this episode, but it just doesn't. It doesn't fit. It's kind of almost like, those tropes where somebody who's usually quite careful will suddenly be super careless in order to kind of activate something or create something to create a situation, because then the rest of the episode will follow how they resolve this situation. But you kind of can't get away from but he would never have done, like, why? That's so out of character that they would do this. And this is basically a whole episode using that premise. Because
and there's things like Dr. Zoidberg in particular, he's making sexist jokes, and it doesn't feel right for his character to be doing that. Some of the characters, it makes a bit of sense, but him in particular, because he says he gets a lot of the joke lines because he's a funny character, and it just doesn't feel right coming from him.
Yeah, especially because like you'd think his kind of the way he's portrayed usually is this. I mean, he's a doctor, so he's sort of a surgeon who seems to have no clue as to how like human anatomy is put together almost. Yeah. So you'd expect the joke more to be on him, that he's not even sure like which people are members of the opposite sex.
Well, that has been jokes in previous episodes that he doesn't know people's genders.
Yeah, so it's sort of strange that he's suddenly so opinionated against the other gender.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an interesting character. Like I think you can just take each character and like break them down and just sort of spend an hour discussing them. But he is a fun character, and he's just sort of I don't know why. It's just sort of the way he's treated. And I guess just the fact that he is such a. But all of them, none of them should really be doing the job they're doing. They are all just.
Well, that was Fry can deliver a package. Yeah, like that's something. That's like the one thing he can do.
Yeah.
So,
and Leela's a good captain.
Yeah, that's true.
Not got a great crew.
yeah. She's proven she's not 100% perfect at decision making and stuff like that. She's tends to get angry quite easily, but yeah, she's probably best suited to her job.
Yeah. Is Bender the cook?
Bender is the cook, yeah. Because he needed to have a job title, essentially. But he does like cooking, despite not having taste and being really bad at it.
Yeah, I remember, because I will always remember the one where everything was just salt. And he just sort of like oversalts everything, and then they have a drink to kind of wash the salt down. And like, oh, is this salt water? He's like, it's salt with water in it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I feel that just sort of highlights the kind of the level of each of these characters in their job. It's sort of that kind of but then there are a lot of it's kind of one of those shows where it gets away with sort of playing with a lot of premises from sci-fi in general, and some are very like blatant, like Zach Brannigan is a good example of kind of the Shatner-esque Star Trek lifestyle. And it's difficult to talk about it because every time I say something I start thinking about an episode. But get us back on track, Rory. Tell me something that I probably don't know or I should know about this show.
Okay, well, if you've listened to that episode of Doghair Presents, there might not be much I can tell you that
it was a while ago.
Yeah, okay. Let me think.
I mean, you should just be happy that I went through your back catalogue. That's
yeah, absolutely. So I won't be able to get the exact numbers of this off the top of my head, but I think there was over the course of the series 7 PhDs among the writing staff, and a lot of degrees and master's degrees and whatever. The joke is that they're the most overqualified writing staff of all time.
Yeah.
So just like PhDs in physics and maths. David X. Konak is in maths. I don't think he has a PhD. He has a master's degree in maths, I think. But Ken Keeler, who wrote a lot of the big episodes, he has, I think, 2 PhDs. It's just, they're an incredibly intelligent writing staff for an animated comedy.
Yeah. It seems, I wonder how their parents feel.
Yeah.
We're so glad we spent all that money to send you to university. What do you do? I write on a cartoon. What?
Yeah.
No, it's an animated show. Okay. That doesn't make me feel any better.
Yeah. But they use it as well. That's the thing. Like, there are jokes that that I know I don't get because I don't have a degree in physics. So it's just some of the jokes are like next level intelligent.
Yeah. I think that's always like, because I feel that that's something you see quite a lot in comedy, is that, you know, you get a lot of these sort of like even stand-up comedians that kind of have a persona when they're on stage, but are clearly very intelligent and have studied a lot, because they're able to like offhandedly reference things that then we have to Google. Like,
yeah.
what? And then you kind of get this. You get like the initial joke, but then you almost get like a deeper appreciation when you go back and you've got a little bit more sort of understanding of a certain subject matter, and then you're like, oh, now I get why that was said or why that happened. But it is interesting, isn't it, that they are able to use it. And I think especially if you kind of imagine that the majority of people are not going to get this, but I'm putting it in anyway. It's almost like I'm writing this for myself. I think it's funny. I don't really care what anyone else thinks.
I've listened to a lot of commentaries, and the writers do say that sometimes they'll put a joke in, so like one guy at MIT will have a laugh to himself, just like a little and that'll be it. And that's what they want sometimes.
Yeah, I mean that little is probably more meaningful than than a lot of the laughs you get on other shows, so why not?
Yeah.
I think there was something you mentioned about like the language as well, this kind of that was hidden within that. Was it Futurama that it was sort of supposed to be like undecipherable and then very quickly got deciphered?
That was the second alien language that they put in. There's 2 alien languages that appear in text and on signs and stuff like that. And the first one was cracked like before like the end of the first episode aired, pretty much, because it was pretty simple. And then they made one that was really complicated and thought no one would ever do it, but people did. It's incredible. Just, I don't know why people bothered, to be honest, but I love that they did.
Yeah, I was literally just thinking, people clearly watch like TV shows and movies in a different way than I do, because I probably wouldn't have noticed that there's an alien language, and then I'm like, oh yeah, there is. But the idea of kind of going back, and I guess I just let a lot wash over me.
Yep.
I'm not going and sort of scrutinizing every detail. I feel I'd be a terrible movie critic. I think actually, sure I was speaking, so it might have even been on this podcast. If it was on this podcast, I'm sorry to say again, but I was sure I was talking to someone else, like, if I was a movie critic, I'd be like, there was an episode of The Simpsons where Homer becomes a food critic. Yeah. And like initially he just loves everything because he just loves to eat. And I'm like, that would be me. I would just be like, it was alright, I had fun with it. And then somebody would kind of point out all the flaws of this movie. And then I'd be like, I suppose you're right, but I had fun with it. It's nice. I enjoyed it.
That's such a problem when I started like reviewing movies and stuff. Like, I have done a few like just like straight reviews and stuff, and I actually stopped enjoying doing it because I had to just nitpick a lot of stuff. I don't really like doing that as much, but
there's always got to be. It's like it happened when I first moved to Italy. A lot of my friends that were learning English, we'd speak in English, obviously, and I kind of had to. I'd never correct them unless they said something that was going to get them in trouble. Kind of like, oh, that's very wrong. You don't want to say that. It means completely a different thing. But generally, I would just kind of be like, what are they trying to say, and work it out, and then and just move on with my day. And then when I was teaching English, I had to change and be very, no, that's wrong. Pronunciation is slightly off. No, you're using the wrong tense. No, this is, and you were not every single thing, but you had to listen with a critical ear. Yeah. And it just made the rest of my life really difficult because anytime I was speaking to someone, I'm just sort of like, oh, that's wrong. That's not right. And you know what was worse? When I moved back to England. And then I would hear English people speaking. I'd be like, oh, I'd be failing you all. That's... that is bad grammar.
That's the weird thing about language, isn't it? It's just like people who grow up speaking a language tend to speak worse than people who have just learned it. And that sentence was probably a great example of it. That was a bit rough, but
well, we'll let you off. Excellent. So, I think I'm going to say it's time. I'm going to hand over to you. If you've got any questions for me about this show that you love so much, and that I have seen, but I cannot remember the last time I saw an episode, so I'm a little bit worried. But let's go for it.
I'm going to assume you haven't seen the later couple seasons.
I feel like maybe I have.
What? Remember when it actually ended? It was 2014, I think, was the last end of the last one.
Yeah, because So Futurama would have been on, I think, Italia Uno, which was one of the few channels that occasionally certain shows would let you put into English when it was digital. So it was one of the few shows that I was actually able to watch in English while living in Italy. So for that reason alone, I would have watched more episodes. But they did a really weird way of playing. Like, there were quite a number of TV shows that they put on, and they would put on like 2 or 3 episodes a day and just like run through the series super fast and then repeat it again. And so you'd find that either, depending on like when you worked, you'd catch kind of always the same episodes, or you were like jumping. Maybe you'd be like watching every 6th episode of something, and then it would like loop back around, and you'd start watching. It was maybe the 4th episode every time, and so I was catching them not exactly in order. But generally that isn't a huge problem for a show like Futurama. There's not that many overarching stories that. Yeah,
they do like tend to, like, if they make a big change on like a lot of animated shows, they do stick with it. But it's not a story that you need to be following. But so does an episode in particular stand out to you as one you've enjoyed, or?
I don't know. I would say there's probably moments in different episodes that really stand. I mean, there are a few that like we said, the one with the dog and ones like that I kind of can remember exactly from the beginning to the end, sort of how the whole episode progressed. And I got a bit confused with sort of when there seems to be like a whole thing. Did they go even further into the future at one point? Is that something that happened, or am I kind of remember them in a desolate like wasteland at one point, and it was all
it's sort of, they don't go further into the future, but they think they did for a bit, but it turns out they're in LA.
Okay, makes sense. I think there's the episode. Is there an episode where Leela meets her parents?
Yes.
That are. It turns out that they're just mutants living underground, and so there's quite a few episodes that sort of stand out, but not. But nothing that is that I'm like, oh, this is the one that you need to see.
That's a really good one, actually. Like I said, when they make a big change, that's a good example of that, Leela's parents, because the writers, they'd always sort of known that Leela was a mutant, and originally, like, she thinks she's an alien. Who's like the last of her species, and that goes on for, I think it's the 3rd season, where she meets her parents, and they kept that like a sort of secret that she was a mutant the whole time, and they've been in the background, so it was all set up.
Because I remember there was an episode where she like lands on a planet, and there is a guy with one eye who she thinks is of the same species, and it turns out he's been sort of playing this long con on a number of different people.
It's a shapeshifter.
So it's something that sort of cropped up now and again, hasn't it? But I do remember when she actually meets her parents. And as I said, I'm a big Star Trek fan, so I like all the kind of the episodes with Zach Brannigan and her joining the fleet and all of that sort of stuff. Have
you seen the one? It's called Where No Fan Has Gone Before. It was with it has a lot of the cast of Star Trek.
Is that they like end up on a planet with like mannequin bodies? Is it that one?
It's the this sort of it's like an alien gas cloud, like you got a lot of in Star Trek, that sort of kidnapped the heads of the original cast of Star Trek and on his planet, and sort of like a collector, and just
and then does it not turn out that he's just like a kid, and his like gas cloud parent comes and sort of scolds him for playing with these?
I don't know if he's meant to be a child, but he's meant to be like
living with his parents.
So
there's a lot of those kind of things, but I did enjoy that one. And I'm flashing through episodes now in my mind, but it's it's hard to recall specifics.
Do you have a favourite character? Is a character, like, if you were watching an episode and it was quite heavy with them, would you enjoy it more? Do you?
I do like Zoidberg. I think he's very funny.
Yeah.
So like the episode where he goes back to his planet and it's like the mating season kind of thing. That's very funny, and also just sort of all his little interactions where he's kind of skulks off because everybody's mean to him because he doesn't know anything. I quite like Layla actually. I think she's Leela. She's a good character, but I find it difficult because hers is the one voice that when I hear, I can see the actress like so clearly.
Yeah.
And I always see her as is it Peg Bundy?
Yeah. I watched that growing up as well, so yeah.
So even though I've seen her in other TV shows and in other like things, and I know what she looks like as an actress, I will just picture her always in that way.
She's kind of the one that in the cast that isn't really a voice actor.
Yeah,
like,
she's just doing her voice as well, isn't
yeah,
she? She's not even...
She doesn't do any other voices, like pretty much everyone else does multiple, but she's just the one. There's actually in that episode you talked about with the shape-shifting alien, he is called Alcazar, and she calls him Al, and she does her hair like Peg Bundy's and stuff like that, and wears like Peg Bundy kind of clothes on it. Yeah, it's a reference to that. It's
really driving that point home.
Yeah,
that's probably what ruined me. There we go. It was that. And of course, I do like Bender as well because he's just, as you said, the worst.
Yeah.
Oh, are you ready for some questions?
Yeah, let's hear them.
You may have seen some of these. I've removed yours.
Fair enough.
Unless you want to tell me why you think Robbie Williams never cracked America.
No, because I'm baffled by it. That's why I keep asking what I know.
Yeah. Well, Dante had an idea. I'm not sure if it was any good. Right. So, speaking of Dante from Let's Get Contextual and Play D&D, he asks, when is the perfect time to have dinner?
Oh, when you're hungry.
When you're hungry. So, like now, basically. I'm pretty hungry.
I mean, yeah, there's no kind of fair. It depends, like, on a lot of factors, I guess, like when you eat lunch. Like, but yeah, you know, it's only really dinner, and like you can't really call it dinner if it's like before 5 or like after 10. I don't think.
No.
That's a different thing you're doing there. That's
another big issue I had because when I moved to Italy, they eat really late.
Yeah.
And occasionally I'd say to my flatmate like, "Oh, should we eat?" And his response was always, "We're not in the hospital," because that's like the only place they would serve dinner kind of before 6.
Right. Yeah.
But man, I was always hungry. His follow-up question then is, how long after dinner should you wait before you have dessert?
I think you can just, as soon as you finish, just go into it. I don't know if there's a necessary waiting period. I'm not a dessert guy, really. I don't eat a lot of desserts, but
I think waiting is the mistake. If I wait, I won't have dessert.
Yeah.
Because I'll just be like, the desire has passed.
Yeah.
If I have it straight away, then it's like I'll never order a dessert when I order my dinner. If I go out, right. I'll kind of wait and be like, I'll wait and see.
Yeah.
And usually, depending on like how long it takes for other people to finish and conversations to die down, then I'm like, do you know what? Not really fussed anymore. Let's go.
Yeah.
So it depends. Dante, do you want to have dessert, or are you hoping that you don't need to? Because if you don't need to, then wait 10 minutes more and you'll probably not really feel hungry anymore anyway. He had another question that I wanted to... If you could take any animal in the world and have it as a pet, what animal would it be and why?
Oh, that's a good question. I think a tiger.
A tiger?
Tiger, yeah.
You're
Bengal tiger.
Not concerned in any way that...
Well, I think the implication in the question was that you don't need to worry about like anything.
Oh, right.
Like that's what I took from it, is that if you could, being that like if it was safe to, and
okay,
it wasn't cruel in any way.
So you've not declawed and detoothed this tiger. It's just
if it was if it had like the personality of like a Labrador. That's what I'm imagining.
A tiger with the personality of a Labrador. Why not? Let's go for it.
Yeah. It would eat a lot. That would be your main problem.
I mean, that's the main problem with all animals, isn't it? It's that.
Yeah.
It's like
I grew up with Labradors, and they eat.
Yeah, we had a couple of dogs growing up, and I remember a friend of mine who had 2 kids and a dog, and he was just always, either feeding the dog or walking the dog or something with the kids and this and that. And he used to constantly be like warning me, "Hey, this could be you in the future, so stop with all your little comments and remarks, because this could be you." And I'm at the time.
You're on your way.
I'm on my way. I've got 1 kid done and 1 on the way. But this was my comment to him: was that, look, it can happen that no matter how careful you are, you can end up with a kid. I get that. Yeah. But I feel like there needs to be a degree of effort to go out and get a dog. Like,
yeah,
that's the more difficult thing for me.
Yeah.
And
wait till the kids start begging for one.
Oh, my son would love a dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. He watches too much Paw Patrol. That's the problem. And he's like, "Oh, we should get a dog." And then I'm like, "Well, we've got you a baby brother or sister." So, and according to Dr. Cox, that's like a dog that slowly learns how to talk. So, be happy with that.
That's Mum. I really wanted a lizard when I was young. I really wanted a gecko or a snake. And my mum is absolutely terrified of snakes and not much of a fan of lizards either. And I think my sister wanted something at the time as well, a hamster. And she ended up getting a second dog to pacify us both on that. Which is an odd compromise.
Yeah. It's not quite like a dog. It's not quite like a lizard or a snake, really.
No.
It's a bit furry, like a hamster.
Yeah.
I mean,
a mammal.
You could have fed the hamster to the snake, so that.
Yeah, well, that was also one of our concerns, was like feeding a snake mice or whatever. That was she did not like the idea of having mice in the fridge.
Oh yeah, you should be like, I want a new pet. What's that? I'd like 20 mice, please. Oh, and a snake. Oh, okay. We're going to jump across to Harry from the Rank List of Everything.
Mm-hmm.
He asks, it's kind of a dual question here: is there such a thing as love at first sight?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think that's kind of give you a fairly serious answer on this one. It's a kind of romantic idea, but it's not like I think infatuation at first sight or whatever sort of chemical triggers in your brain kick off at first sight is a thing, but I don't think love as we sort of have come to define it at first sight is really a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you need to know a person to really love.
Yeah.
There can be they look nice at first sight.
yeah, that's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah. I feel like that you need to basically not be repulsed at first sight. That's sort of the issue, isn't it? As long as they look nice enough that you want to talk to them and then get to know them, and then love can grow. We're going to put it that way.
Yeah.
My wife did not like me when we first met.
Really?
She didn't know me. That's what I'm going to assume it was.
Yep. So
I don't make a great first impression. Second or third isn't much better, but by the 5th time you meet me, that's when I'm shining.
That's it. Yep.
So you've just got 3 more times to come on the show, Rory. He then follows it up with, on the flip side, is there such a thing as being mildly irritated at first sight?
Yeah, absolutely. That is, yeah. I can be mildly irritated at anything at any point, so yes.
Yeah, I'm also behind you on this one, because my wife will strongly attest to the fact that I get irritated very quickly. It doesn't take much, and first sight, I would even say first glimpse. I don't need a full sight. Yeah. Oh, is there anything that you've seen that's just triggered you, like just like that?
Well, yeah, like mildly, yes. I've not gone into a full rage at looking at somebody ever, I don't think. But yeah, sometimes you just look at somebody and they look back at you, just like, but they look like they hate you. And you're like, why? What is that?
Yeah.
Why?
You don't even
Why
know
are you
me.
so angry at me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that. To answer, since it was Harry that asked, men in suits not wearing socks is a big problem for me.
Yeah. So I saw my son today wearing smart clothes. He was wearing socks, but they were like the ankle socks.
Yeah.
And that was enough to irritate me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a good look. I don't understand why people think it is. But I've discussed this at length before, so...
Yeah. And we won't tell anyone where. There may be an episode on the rank list of everything. Maybe. Yeah, I think it's a similar thing. For me, the one that will stand in my mind until probably the end of time is when I was at a party and there was a guy there wearing pink Converse All-Stars.
Yeah.
Which, like, do that if you want. If you think they look good, if you're happy with that, that's fine. But he was, like, making a point of coming round to everyone and, like, highlighting the fact that he was wearing these shoes.
What?
And and he came over to me. I've never met you. I don't know you.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, hey, what do you think of my shoes?" And I was just like, "They look ridiculous. Get out of here." And I kind of feel like if he'd worn them and not said anything, I would not have cared.
Yeah.
But you're deliberately wearing them, not because you necessarily particularly like them, but you think it's a statement.
Yeah.
And you've got to highlight that fact. Oh.
That's a weird thing to do. That's odd behaviour.
There's a book that I read, I think it's by Ben Elton, that's sort of like set in a almost like Big Brother house kind of thing.
Right, yeah.
And this guy says he can like determine anybody's personality by their toothbrush. And they're all like explaining what their toothbrush looks like. And this one guy very kind of arrogantly is like, well, my toothbrush is plain white. Yeah. There's like there's no strips on there. There's nothing. It's just a plain white normal toothbrush. Like, what does that tell you about me? And his comments were not very pleasant. And it was basically correct because can you find a just plain white toothbrush? Like, you have to go out of your way to get that now. It's much easier to just get some like random toothbrush with weird colors or whatever because the supermarkets are like littered with those. Yeah. So you have deliberately gone out of your way to find the most plain, boring one just so you can kind of very pretentiously say, well, my toothbrush is just plain. Yeah. And that says more about you than anything else. So, yeah, quite enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's good.
Right. Here's one from Callum Reardon. I don't know Callum, so thanks, Callum. So I don't know what his podcast is, but I know he has a video games podcast.
Okay.
That's as much as I know. I'll find out what it is. But he asks, what's your favourite wood?
Oh, favourite wood. I like a mahogany.
It's very classy.
Yeah, I like the colour of mahogany quite a bit. Ebony, also nice.
Noticing a theme here.
Yeah.
If I offered you some pine, I feel it would be rejected at this point.
Yeah, not a fan of pine. No, I like the smell of pine though. So that's.
There you go. So if you don't have to look at it, and you can just have it in the back of a cupboard somewhere, it's fine.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, dark woods generally.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of. What about yourself? Do you have a favourite wood?
Not really. I think I'm on the same sort of side as you as that. Yeah, I prefer a darker. I kind of like looking around this room. I've got like a wooden wardrobe in the corner that is a much more. Yeah. It's not pine, but it's like a pine-esque colour, and don't really like it, to be honest with you. I always go for like the dark browns, the blacks, kind of. Yeah. Which my wife doesn't really like that I fill the house with dark stuff. It's like makes it look smaller, but I'm like, well, I don't. Yeah. It's the inner Batman in me that that craves the shadows. Well, I think we can't really top that question. That's as good a place as any to end this.
Absolutely.
Do they have a lot of wood in the future?
No, actually, there's very little wood in Futurama. They don't have wheels either. They lost the technology for wheels. So, yeah.
So not even a wheel of cheese.
No.
Unbelievable. Rory, we've hinted at it quite a lot throughout this. Actually, both of your channels, I feel we've hinted at throughout this this podcast. But just in case any of our listeners didn't pick up on these subtle hints, where can people find you?
Yeah, so I host a podcast called Doghair Presents, where I try and teach everybody listening something new every week. Jason has been a guest on it. A couple of fantastic episodes, Robin Hood and what did I tell you about squirrels? Great episodes. Check them out.
I will chip in here that I think my mum said to me that the episode on Robin Hood is like the best thing she'd heard me do.
That is good.
Which I don't know how I should feel about that. Any of my own stuff is terrible, but an episode I did on somebody else's podcast is by far the pinnacle of my career.
It's somebody else's podcast. You put the work in. You did the work on it, so still you doing it.
All right, I'll take that.
And it is a great episode. So yeah, check that one out. You can find that wherever you find podcasts, usually Spotify, iTunes, places like that. And I also host a YouTube channel called Hangover Reviews, where I review things to watch and do with a hangover. I've done Futurama as well, and that's one of my my highest watched videos ever on that. So yeah, you can find that on YouTube, Hangover Reviews. You can also tweet me at Hangover Reviews or at Doghair Network.
I will try my best to include links to all of these things in the show notes. I'm pretty good at doing that. I generally remember what I say I'm going to include, and I include them.
I don't. I'm pretty bad at that.
No, you actually sent me a message that you were impressed that I included in another podcast that I host. Getting to Know Who. Haven't been many episodes of that out recently, but that might have changed by the time this has been published. Who knows what the future holds for that show? But I kind of offhandedly said I would include a link for Air Canada.
Yeah,
and I did. So I remembered to do that, and you are probably the only person that then sent me a message saying I checked, and you did.
Yeah.
I'm a man of my word, if nothing else. But yeah, so I've got Getting to Know Who. You can also find my newest show that is all across fitness on YouTube, as well as wherever you find your podcasts. And if you do go and see it on YouTube, maybe give the video a like. That would be appreciated. You don't have to do that on podcasts. So I'm just going to assume the reason nobody is liking it is because they just forget.
Yeah,
they're just too used to listening to podcasts. And there's a little
a weird thing I do now is whenever I'm watching a YouTube video on my phone or on a laptop, I automatically like it if I go on it. I think that's just having been on YouTube for a while. I know that that's good to do, but before I even watch it, usually I like it. Yeah,
and then you have to go back and dislike it after you've seen it and go, "Oh, this is terrible."
Yeah.
The worst one is when there's something that's like not good, like maybe they're reporting on something bad.
Yeah,
and I'm like, am I supposed to like this or dislike this? Because the thing is really bad. It's good you're telling me about it and you're not like supporting it, but should I like this?
So you need a sort of like Facebook style reaction array.
I'm crying. Anyway, I'm sure I will include links to the majority of these things in the show notes somewhere, so just look down from wherever you are now. Thank you very much for joining me, Rory. I know you're heading out for a comedy night or something tonight.
Yeah, some sort of comedy show.
So it was kind of you to make time to chat about Futurama before that. And
I will always make time to chat about Futurama.
Excellent. So I know now for the future, if I'm ever in need, Futurama Part 2 is all I need to say. Okay, well, thank you, Rory, and thank you, everybody who listened all the way to the end, and we'll see you all again next week. Goodbye.